Welcome to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President, Local 237. I want to tell everyone Happy New Year. With me today, our very special guest is the first New York City Public Advocate ever, Mark Green. He also ran for mayor back in 2001. Mark, welcome to Reaching Out.
I am so delighted to be here. Radio is the future, and thank you for letting me in.
Once again, it's a pleasure having you. I consider you a legend. So,
in my own mind,
in radio and also in New York City politics, you're now the founder of a national movement, Money Out, Voters In. Tell us what that's about.
For too long, money more than merit has decided elections. That doesn't seem totally consistent with democratic small d values. And for too long, there are interest groups who want to suppress the vote so they get out their base. And that combination, we could lose our democracy. And so I just came up with the phrase, money out / voters in. The two sides of the same coin of democracy. And we saw the problem worsen, if anything, in 2012, with hundreds of millions in super PAC money, which is independent money flooding into campaigns for a candidate or against, and with 22 states trying to reduce the vote. And so we're a coalition that's trying to speak out and get legislative and constitutional change.
Tell us about your coalition. Who's involved with your organization and how did this come together?
Well, I worked 40 years ago, this won't take long, for Public Citizen, founded by Ralph Nader. I ran Congress Watch. It still exists. And I went back to them and I said, look, can I, as an emeritus, as a senior democracy fellow, work with you? And the result is a national day, Money Out, Voters In, Day of Action, sponsored by Public Citizen on January 19th. And we can get into why that day and what we're going to do. And we've gotten public interest campaign finance groups aligned, like Demos, like the Brennan Center, like Common Cause, like Citizen Action. And we've gotten some unions aligned so far, and we're growing, like 32BJ, the Doormen and Janitors Union, for example, like the UFT, the United Federation of Teachers. And the key is that we have voting rights groups like NAACP, environmental groups nationally, the Sierra Club, Greenpeace. So you see, there have been campaign reform groups for generations, and separately voting rights groups for generations. But rarely, if ever, have they come together, because each needs the other, to revive our democracy.
And what do you do when you come together? Like I represent the Teamsters. We would like to participate. How would we participate?
Well, I would be in touch with you, who I know over the years, and you're a legend, and you're more likely to be the next mayor or sheriff than I am. But the Teamsters 237, for example, would sign our statement of principles that we want public funding for public elections, which we have in New York City.
Yes.
We don't have in New York State.
Right.
We want a constitutional amendment to overturn a really pernicious, disastrous 5-4 conservative Supreme Court decision called Citizens United, and we want universal voter enrollment, which I could talk about. And so any group that joins would come and join us on January 19th, and then work with this ad hoc coalition to advance the constitutional amendment. Not easy. It's happened 17 times since the Bill of Rights.
Sure.
But it can happen if there's a moment or a year or a period where elected politicians listen more to the voice of voters than donors. Barney Frank, the exiting and the great congressman from Massachusetts, once said, come on, let's face it. If your biggest donor is on line 1 and your kids or a voter are line 2, 3, 4, and 5, what call do you take? And the answer for 100% of elected officials is the donor. It didn't happen, though, in Watergate. And the scandal of Watergate with illegal money and corruption, and people now know about it in 1973, led to the last great campaign finance reform law that was enacted, because members of Congress then were more afraid of the mass of average voters than a few big donors. And I think the reaction and the repulsion to super PAC money and the voter suppression rule, you know, the Karl Roves and the Florida Rick Scotts and the David Kochs and the Sheldon Adelsons, is so great. And the re-election, of course, of Barack Obama, who's sympathetic to all of this. We have a door we can walk through and get systemic change in America.
How would the average citizen get involved? Do you have a website, information on your event on the 19th?
Individual people who listen can go to the groups involved, like the SEIU 32BJ.org or Public Citizen is citizen.org. Now, if people go to moneyout-votersin.org, you'll see the national website, and then you click on J19 for January 19th, and you look for the New York event. And we're getting down the location now, but we hope to have 500 to 1,000 people. Labor, citizens, environmentalists, voting rights advocates, cross-party, racial, class, geographic lines. Because the only way this works is if, again, candidates and elected officials are more concerned with and listen to people who vote, rather than, you know, just a quiet whisper from the big donors, which we don't see about. And the billionaires lost. Sheldon Adelson spent $100 million, and none of his candidates won. He's the Las Vegas casino guy who was big for Gingrich and then Romney. But guess what? He'll be back. You got to give credit to capital in this country. They don't give up.
Yeah, you could say he's a gambler, right?
Very good. And you're not a gambler. You're a lighthouse, Greg. Teamsters 237 and the other unions I mentioned, SEIU 1199. You are around because you understand that solidarity produces results. But politically, when people say, oh, well, big business gives money and labor gives money, that's ridiculous because, while technically true, the Koch brothers of Koch Industries, oil and gas, those two men have a net worth greater than all American labor unions combined. Two men. And capital in this country, you know, aggregating the trillions of dollars of shareholder wealth in you know, lawful businesses, have 300 times the wealth of labor in this country. So it's one-sided. And while individuals should be able to give what they want up to a fixed amount, when shareholders give money for private investment to make a profit, that's cool. But it's bait and switch then to turn around and say that private money to make a profit in the private market should be spent to buy candidates in the public arena. It is, I hope this isn't too legal. I'm a lawyer and don't hold it against me. But the whole idea was corporations don't exist in the natural world. They weren't mentioned in the United States Constitution. They are creations of the state, which gives corporate charters for the purpose of making money in X line of business. But it is ironic, if not laughable, that in turn those corporations would raise money to buy the lawmakers themselves. That's wrong, and that's why we want to overturn this 2009 Supreme Court decision, which changed the law after 100 years. It's called Citizens United.
Now, what's significant about January 19th that you're kicking this organization off?
January 19th is the third anniversary of the Citizens United case, where Justice Roberts, Scalia, Alito, Thomas et al. Said, you know, if corporations spend tens of millions of dollars, it won't diminish people's belief in democracy. They made that up. There's no data to support that. And we now watch, if an average voter sees Sheldon Adelson or David Koch give tens of millions of dollars, they may wonder, well, how do I count? So we are launching a drive to get a constitutional amendment, and there are a lot of groups around the country, most prominently a group called Move to Amend, that will be pushing for that.
That's all the time we have for this show. Our very special guest, Mark Green, former public advocate, first public advocate in New York City, and former candidate for mayor. Mark, thank you for being on Reaching Out.
I've learned so much. I look forward to seeing you soon and again.
Thank you.